What scam did you fall for? When I was 11, I signed up at genealogy.b, a page that supposedly helps with finding out more about your heritage. I read through the entire AGBs, not kidding, and there was no indication that it had cost anything. A week later I get an email saying I have to pay $60 by May 21st of that year. I'm telling you this because what that shit led to was the actual fun part. Since I was only 11, I was scared shitless and decided not to tell my parents. I even did some research on how I, as a kid, could get the money to those people. I was so scared. I scribbled the words "it will all be over on May 21st" on my desk at school, which led to me being taken aside by a teacher asking me whether I wanted to kill myself. I explained the situation to her. She told me to talk to my parents and it all ended well. We didn't pay a penny. My father wrote them a "what pathetic people would try to scam a child" email, and the thing was settled. One time on RuneScape I fell for the buy limit scam. Some dude said he needed help buying feathers, but had hit his buy limit. I myself had just recently learned about the buy limits and been inconvenienced as well, so I sympathized. If you don't play, the guy basically put up his own items at a marked up price on the general market, tricked me into buying them, then dipped before I got paid back, and I was stuck with all of his feathers and no money. My college roommate and I fell victim to that magazine scam where people go door to door saying they're selling magazine subscriptions to help raise money for homeless children with AIDS or something. They play on your sympathies and get you to write them a check. Spoiler alert, you never get any magazines nor help any children. I was uneasy about it at the time, but I'm uneasy around people in general, so I thought I was just being paranoid. Years later, we found out this was a common scamming technique. Big light bulb moment for me there. While in high school, was walking through a park and a woman was walking my way. As soon as we passed each other she says, "You dropped something." I turn around and she's holding a gold necklace. I told her it's not mine. She says it's not hers, but agrees that we both found it and I can give her $50 to keep it. I think to myself that it's worth a lot more, so I give Jeff $50 just to get home and get scolded by my dad for falling for stuff like this. Turns out it's a well-known scam, and I paid $50 for a cheap metal necklace. A man from a gas company said that they were inserting new electricity and gas meters in all the apartments in my block. When I opened the door he walked straight in, but showed me his ID, so seemed legit. My shower had been interrupted, so I was in a bad mood and very keen to get rid of the guy. He said he just needed to phone his company for proof from me that he had visited as he was new to the job. It turns out that me confirming this on the phone was a voice signature binding me into a new 2-year contract with the service provider, who then wanted to increase the price of my gas and electricity by 100%. After he left I felt uneasy and searched the company and then phoned Citizens Advice for help. Turns out they targeted my place because they searched where the students were living as they are more vulnerable. Didn't fall for it entirely, but I recently wrote my name and number onto one of those pink slips saying you could win a trip to the Bahamas, and was texted about a month later saying that I won. I got so happy. I called their number and apparently they were paying for the hotel, but not anything else. Decided to look more into it and their website, Harmony Beaches, looks super shady and out of date. Apparently it's a scam to get you to go to timeshare meetings. People try to convince you to buy expensive stuff and buy into pyramid schemes. A lot of people have been scammed this way. Dodged a bullet honestly. Wife and I went to Las Vegas for the first time back in 2015. Wanted to get tickets to a show. They were a bit expensive, so we decided to think on it for a while. Walk outside and saw a stand saying they were selling discounted tickets. All you had to do was sitting on some sales thing for 2 hours the next day. We thought, how bad can it be? Let's just say no to anything they say. Sitting in on that thing was one of the most miserable ways I ever spent 2 hours in my life. So if you're going to Las Vegas, avoid anything saying they'll sell you something for a discount. Timeshare meetings are the worst. Didn't really fall for it, but was worried about an alleged bill. The scene. I'm traveling home from a cross-regional trip and get a flat tire on a stretch of I-55 that God forgot. I pull over to the shoulder, panic a little because I'm 19. This is my first solo long distance trip, but I get my shit together and call roadside support, toss my hazards on, and settle in for a 2-hour wait for a tow truck. Truck shows up and starts loading my car up. As we are finalizing the straps, an ambulance-like vehicle rolls up with no lights on. There's only one guy in it, and he comes over to check on me and ask if I'm okay, if I need any help, and just completely ignoring the tow driver. Red flags, alarms and sirens are just going off in my head. I'm 19 and naive, but I'm not stupid. We finally get him to stay to fuck off when he hands me an emergency services unrendered bill and explains that because he had to respond to a distress call that I didn't make, I was now responsible for the operating costs of him coming out. He fucks off. Driver and I get into his truck. Driver starts going on about how I'm lucky he got there before ambulance guy because who knows what would have happened, and also says he doesn't know of anything like that. I get dropped off at a Walmart with the tire and lube department. He tells me that the bill is probably fake, and if it's not he'll pay it himself for being wrong. As I'm waiting in the store, I get a call from the local sheriff. Oh shit, I'm in for it now. Instead the sheriff says he's friends with the tow truck driver and wanted to call me to get as many details as possible because no emergency call was logged that corresponded to what happened to me. He tells me that there's no need to pay the bill. He'll get everything tidied up for me and asks for as many details as I remembered. I never looked into if anything came of that. After I got home the next day, I worried about my parents or I getting a collections call about that $600 bill for months. But nothing ever came off it on our end. I still wonder if that ambulance guy was just trying to scam some teenager or had something more nefarious in mind. Either way, really thankful I didn't have to handle him alone for any amount of time. A couple of years ago I was trying to get a good camera. Found a website that had some for really cheap. I wrote some emails, they answered, phoned them, talked to a real person, was told they had some sort of publicity deal and that's how they got so low prices. Mind it, they were good prices, but not too good to be true. Well, I decided to go forward with the purchase, and I was told I had to pay via Amazon gift card, and I fell for it. Lucky me, Amazon froze the payment and returned my money. So bullet dodged. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s there was a website where you could post your poetry. I was one of those people who thought my crappy poetry was good. I got an email from them saying they had chosen my poem to be included in their annual published edition. All I had to do was send them $50 and I would get a hardbound edition. I thought I had made it as a writer. Excitedly, I told my parents, and they very tactfully explained that they most likely send everyone that same email. I was fortunate to get some intervention, so while I fell for it, I was saved the embarrassment of actually paying $50 for a book of shitty poetry with my one shitty poem in it. When I was in college and desperate for money I was sucked into a care.com scam. I was looking for a nannying / babysitting job with flexible hours, no car requirements, etc etc. Some lady hit me up about her 3 kids needing a nanny. She had a whole song and dance about how they were moving to town soon, and one kid needed a wheelchair ordered for him, but since she didn't live in town yet could she order it to my house. She was offering $400 a week for about 20 hours of work, so even though I was a little suspicious, I decided to keep corresponding with her since I was super broke. I gave her my address and she told me that she was going to send her check to me and that I was to pay for the wheelchair with it and then keep the rest as my first week's pay. I said sure, and that was that for a few days. Then I happened to see a post on Facebook regarding the recent upswing in Care.com scams. The example they showed was pretty much the exact situation I had gotten myself wrapped up in. I messaged the lady back and said that I had given it some thought, but I was no longer interested, and I didn't get a response. Figured that was that. Fast forward a couple weeks and I get a strange envelope in the mail with the return address of an out-of-state prison. I messaged back saying that I got the check, but I'm not going to cash it because obviously this is a scam. Again, didn't hear anything back, but in the upcoming weeks I would receive random calls from unknown numbers, strange voicemails, and finally a text that read just a little blam calling the cops on you. I was freaking out a little bit, but I just ignored everything, and eventually the call stopped and nothing ever came of it. I'm still not sure what the point of this scam was, but I'm glad I caught my stupid self before doing anything with the check. Last year, I got robbed by a shade tree mechanic. I'm new in a semi-rural area in New Mexico, and I've had problems with people stealing water, burglarizing my cabin, and messing with my car. I had driven down the mountain to run an errand, and my car was suddenly running rough. I parked at the post office, and when I came out, a tough looking guy on a cool custom motorcycle was parked next to me. My car wouldn't start, and he offered to help. Said he could come by my house. I said, sure. So he comes over the next day and I immediately got the creeps, but ignored it. He checked out my car and shows me that someone has pulled out antifreeze and put it in the oil tank, and pulled wiper fluid and put that in the antifreeze tank. He says, let's go for a ride to the auto parts store and buy some oil and filters and take care of this. The guys at the auto parts store seemed terrified of him. I bought over $100 of supplies. He convinced me that motorcycle oil was best for my car, and we went back to my place. Well, then he robbed me and stole stuff from my house, cash, and all the auto supplies. I'm an idiot. The old back quote, if your hand is bigger than your face you have cancer trick.